Ready to rock and roll? Is that action? All right.
Okay. That's right.
All right.
Absolutely. Go. 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 Go.
Hello, everybody. It's Jason Will with
Go. Go. Go.
This is a real estate podcast, but we talk about leadership, personal growth, and becoming the best version of yourself. Leadership, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. Growth, best version of yourself.
Go.
So this is a real estate podcast. Welcome to the Impact Agent Podcast. It's really great to be back in the studio after a long absence. I'm here with Deborah Mann with Roberts Brothers here in Mobile, Alabama. Deborah Mann, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I am so glad that you took time out of your busy day to come down here and talk to us about Impact Agent Conference. This is going to be an Impact Agent Conference recap, and you were an attendee. So thank you for also buying a ticket and supporting the event.
Oh, I was excited about being there. It was wonderful.
So I got 2 goals, really, for this conversation. Number 1, I want to recap some of the highlights of the event, talk about some of the learning-based nuggets that you got out of it. But also, as you and I have talked before, we want to inspire people to become learning-based.
Absolutely.
So I think there is a large population of agents that would say, they would probably say, well, the conference was in New Orleans. You know, you just went over there to gamble and eat and drink a hurricane and have fun. It's not really something that's going to actually have an impact in your business. So I want to prove some of those people wrong.
Okay.
And just talk about, what it's done for your business. So let's start with introductions, though, first, before we get too far ahead of ourselves. So tell us a little bit about who Deborah Mann is and how you got into real estate and how long you've been in real estate.
We could go a long time because I'm old and I've had quite a life. Actually, I started out my career very young as an attorney in Las Vegas, which is where I grew up and where I'm from, and got married, had a child with autism.
Oh, wow.
He was pretty profoundly autistic, and I ended up staying at home and homeschooling and doing all of that for a long time, moving around the country, following my ex-husband around. Ended up here in the South about 20 years ago. When it was time to go back to work, really didn't feel like studying for another bar exam.
I can imagine.
And I love people and I love helping people. And, being a lawyer, you didn't always have that opportunity, especially doing what I had done. And, I knew a lot of realtors and I thought, wow, what a great opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life. I had moved so much over the years. And I thought, I had some really great people help me out, and I had some really horrible people, horrible experiences. I don't want to say horrible people, but horrible experiences. And I thought, I want to be the kind of person that can make a really difficult time, because moving's hard. It really is. Better. And I wanted to help people in that way. And so I pursued my realtor license, and it's been great.
Does an attorney have to prospect?
It was different as an attorney. I went to work for a firm, and the partners did.
They provide leads?
Well, we did a lot of big, huge, giant cases, a lot of construction defect litigation. We had established clients, and we would do that work. I mean, we basically would be retained by an insurance company to represent somebody who was being sued. And, buildings fall down all the time, unfortunately. Right. So there was plenty of work to do.
So I think it would be fair to say, you had the legal aspect of it, because a lot of, the real estate industry, the real estate business has a foundation in real estate law.
Absolutely.
So that came naturally to you, but you'd never had to prospect before, or at least to this level?
I'm a very type A personality. And being a stay-at-home mom, I type A'd that thing to death. And there was a period of time that I did some Mary Kay stuff. And so I had actually learned how to prospect a little bit through that experience. Whenever you move a lot, having to go out there and make friends, and I was a homeschool mom, so I was always having to find opportunities for my kids to learn, and I was having to find opportunities for them to have friendships, especially with, the oldest child being autistic. I was always having to go out and prospect for those sorts of things. And then I was able to pull that into real estate when I became a realtor.
I've got some very new agents on my real estate team.
Okay.
And we've had a conversation in the last couple of days just about the difficulty level of the real estate business. I think people had this vision of this very successful looking woman, maybe in a convertible, riding around in expensive sunglasses and talking on her cell phone, in this convertible as the wind, blows through her hair. And I always say to new recruits, there's one of two things about this woman. Either she's, maybe independently wealthy or comes from, a rich family, or she's like, if she's a realtor, she's either got wealth from somewhere or she's the hardest working woman you ever met in your life.
Absolutely.
What has been your experience so far in real estate? So how many years are you in?
2 years.
Okay, wow.
So, I'm relatively new. When I came into the business, I really had no idea. I met some realtors, we became friends, and I remember having a discussion, what am I going to do with my life now? It's time for me to go back to work. I was getting divorced, single mom, in my future. And yeah, you're good with people. You have no problems going out and talking and meeting people. You'd be good at real estate. Oh, okay. Yeah. And I didn't even go to classes. I signed up online for school. Mm-hmm. Paid for both pre and post. And I think I scheduled my test, let's say for a Wednesday, called up a real estate company and said, hey, I want to go interview to work with you. And I said, I'm taking my test at 9 o'clock on Wednesday.
Right.
Can I come in at 10:30? It'll take me about an hour and I'll be there anyway. And I'd like to just talk to you about working, that was Roberts Brothers. And it was kind of funny. She's like, no, it's going to take you longer than an hour to take your test. No, it'll take me about an hour to take the test. So we set it up and she's like, but if you're an hour or two late, don't worry about it.
Right.
You just come in as soon as you're done. Well, I showed up at 10:30.
Wow.
I was the first one out of there. It took me a little under an hour to take my exam. Got a 94 in it. I showed up. She wasn't there. Apparently, nobody does that.
Yeah.
And so, they didn't really interview me very much. They were like, wow, you're here? You got a 94 and come to work with us.
Right.
And so then I started working as a realtor, and that was pretty much all the preparation I had.
Yeah, so let's talk about what happened from there. So you go to work for a firm that's got a lot of established, very successful real estate agents, and I would imagine that might have been a little overwhelming.
Well, I had this idea that I was going to go in and sit down at a desk, and people were going to call me and say, come list my house. Mm-hmm. It didn't work that way.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't work that way for months. And in fact, oh my goodness, I didn't have anything between the time that I started until I got my permanent license. I had a big zero, no clients, no customers, no business. And I'm like, this is not working. I took my they had some classes, and I think I took them twice.
Right.
Because, I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. And I was learning a lot of great stuff, and I knew I was going to be great if I found somebody I could be great for.
Right.
And I didn't have that. And, 87% of realtors fail out in their first 5 years. And I didn't have a plan B. I mean, I put all my eggs into this basket, and I had to make it work. And so I was very fortunate that at about that time, a company brought in a national speaker to do some training. It was like $1,000, and I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? Well, I literally was, every emergency bit of money in my purse was coming out. I paid her in cash, like in 20s in some regard, to get into this class. And that changed my business, because whereas I had been trained in, this is the theory, this is what you do, and I was beginning to understand I wasn't going to sit there and people weren't going to call me. Mm-hmm. It was really more go out and talk to people. And we had been taught that. It's all about conversations. It's about talking to people. Mm-hmm. But it didn't mean anything until I started doing it.
Right.
And so then I started, they required us to talk to a certain number of people every week. And all of a sudden, whoa, I started getting business. Between the time that I got my full-time license, my permanent license, and my 1-year anniversary, I got my $1 million producer pin just in that 6 months.
Yeah.
And then my goal was, by the time I hit 1 year, I wanted multi-million-dollar producer, and I was able to do that as well. And it was all about talking to people and prospecting.
Right.
And knowing how to prospect. But if I hadn't taken that extra class, even though it was all in the post-license class and the business builder classes that they had given us, it wasn't presented in a way that meant enough for me to actually do it. It was there, but I didn't see it until I actually went to a different class, and then I got it.
Let's recap it here. I love to do kind of little paint by numbers exercises as we go through this, because a lot of real estate agents, you really have to, they need a lot of hand holding, and they need like connecting these A to B dots. So what I'm hearing you say is that a realtor's job is to talk to people. That is their job description in its simplest form. I've always been fascinated by the fact that people that have no plan B, like if there's only a plan A, those people seem to be able to find a way to build a sustainable business.
That's good news.
And the other thing that you touched on was that, a lot of agents have this very high expectation. And I get in trouble a lot of times, especially as a coach, by telling real estate agents they should lower their expectations. Lower their expectations about this immediate gratification that they expect to get. Like you said, I was expecting people just to call me. And I want to bring that around full circle when we start talking about Impact Agent Conference and just any other events that you've gone to, because the other thing that I hear agents say is that when they leave an event, they're disappointed. Like they were expecting to get a magic bullet, a magic pill, something that is just going to revolutionize their business. And the fact of the matter is it's not revolutionary stuff. It's fundamental stuff. Other thing that's really fascinating about what you said is that this course cost $1,000 and you had to go into emergency funds. Anywhere you could find, you're searching through the couch, the laundry, you going through the pockets of the pants and the laundry looking for a $5. You had to, you're searching your car for change. And what an impact that class had. Just a profound, it was a life-changing opportunity for you.
Absolutely.
I wonder, did a lot of agents participate in that class, or did you hear a lot of agents talking about, I would, but it's so expensive?
There was a split. It was only for my firm, which is fairly large.
Right, it is.
And we have both sides of the bay like yours. And so there were plenty of people to do it within the company. When I started, and I knew that my ideas weren't real. People weren't just going to call me up and walk in the door and say, come list my house, come help me buy a house. I started looking around at who was successful and who wasn't successful, because I knew if I needed to be successful, I needed to be more like the people who were successful and less like the people who weren't successful. And so I would watch them and I would talk to them and I would ask them, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? I mean, I asked everybody in my office that all the time, what do you do to get business? What is your favorite way to get business? And I noticed the people who were signing up for the classes were the successful people. And the ones that were saying, oh, it's too expensive, were the ones that were failing out. And so I thought, what? I want to be like this group over here, and they're all going to this class. I'm going to this class. And, so I did. And it made a huge difference for me.
All right. So just for reference for the audience, that speaker, because we could have brokers that are listening that want to know, or agents want to bring this person in their office. His name was Floyd Wickman.
Floyd Wickman. Yeah, it's actually his coaching team. It wasn't actually Floyd Wickman. Okay. It was one of his coaches. But I don't think it's the coaching system by itself. I think any coaching system could have produced those kinds of results. It just happens to be the one that my company uses.
Excellent point. I love that. In our pre-interview, you said something that I highlighted as a quote. You said, I don't want to be what everybody else has always been. Okay.
I think what we were talking about at the time, I'm the latecomer to the game. And I'm not just talking about, being older. I'm talking about the fact that I didn't grow up in Mobile. Mobile is a very traditional city. It's a wonderful city.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are in business, especially real estate, have been here for generations. And so for me, they're getting their leads from their friends from high school. They're getting their business from, people they went to kindergarten with, people that their kids play with. I came over here for, I've lived here for a few years, and I lived over in Baldwin County for several years. But I didn't have that experience. I've gotten one lead from somebody in high school, Las Vegas,
Right.
Happened to know somebody moving to Mobile. I can't count on that as a stream of business for me. So I had to find something different. I can't be what everybody else is. And in Mobile, that's seems very typical of the way people get their business. they're popular. They know a lot of people from their life experiences here. And they tell us all the time at work, talk to your sphere. Get referrals from people who know you, like you, love you.
Right.
Well, I don't have a huge sphere, and most of the people who know me have only known me a relatively short period of time. And so I had to do something different. And another thing, too, is, when you're kind of regrouping, being a single mom, coming back, starting over, having stayed at home for a number of years, I raised my autistic son. He's now in college, doing really well, very successful. I've got my youngest still at home with me. Everything's changing. You kind of have to evaluate, take stock. Who am I? What can I bring to the table? Why should anybody do business with me? What do I have to offer? And then later, how am I going to get business to begin with? And being somewhat introspective and taking some stock, I realized I can't be like everybody else because I don't have what everybody else has as far as the history here.
Well, and I think as your career progresses, you're going to be in an interesting situation because you're going to have a focus on new business, new relationships, new people, and then you're going to start to develop this center of influence or this sphere of influence from your past clients.
Right.
And just becoming well known and becoming a person of interest in the community. And I think that's where a lot of agents, particularly in Mobile, who run these traditional businesses, and they may do $3 to $6 million a year in production. And maybe they feel like that's the ceiling of their achievement. And I want to make it clear that I feel like if you are from somewhere, you're born and raised, your foundation of your business should be your SOI.
Absolutely.
But there is so much more out there and available. Yeah. So I find that agents that come into the business and go right towards the learning-based activities. And it's important to point out, I want to fast forward across this point, though, that you spent this $1,000 on this course, but at the same time, you're also finding a lot of free resources. Can we talk about that for a minute? Yeah,
absolutely. And my couple of years in real estate has not just been, I discovered this and everything's great. Mm-hmm. I screw things up a lot.
Yeah.
And like I tell my kids, you learn more from doing stupid things than you'll ever do from doing everything right. So I'm going to be brilliant, Like I said, I was going through a really bad divorce, and it was 2 years in the making. I've only been divorced for about 6 months at this point.
Oh, wow.
And, there was a lot of game playing and a lot of crap. I was in court every other day just about for months. And I'll tell you, it killed my business. And I had really good people tell me, you got a lot of problems, but being broke isn't going to make them any better. Mm-hmm. But I really did let it derail me. And I stopped doing the things that were working. I wasn't in coaching. I wasn't doing that sort of thing. So I didn't have that accountability. And of course, at my office, everybody is wonderful. They're great about doing sphere of influence, but that's not what I needed to be accountable for doing because I don't have a lot of that yet.
Right.
And so the work that I had done after that class, because, real estate, we're 3 to 6 to 9 months out.
Right.
It lasted for a little while, but then my divorce was final. Well, there was some appealing, at the end of the year last year, right before the holidays.
Perfect timing.
Well, yeah, except that's about the time that all the work I had done the year before kind of trickled out.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden I lifted up my head and said, I'm free. And I'm dead broke because I had nothing in the works. I had nothing going on. And, I just realized that was so stupid. Yeah, my life kind of sucked there for a while. And yeah, I was in court every week with it being continued and sitting in his room for 8 hours and then him saying, this is complicated. I didn't realize we're going to come back tomorrow, And I'm like, how can I set up any appointments if I have to keep coming back to court?
Right.
Although I did end up getting a lead. One of the bailiffs wants to be an investor. I did leave my cards with the court clerk. And I tried to do a little bit. It wasn't enough. You have to prospect every single day or you're going to fizzle out. And so I realized here it is December, not a lot of people doing a lot. And my life was going to suck really bad if I didn't pull it together. And so at that point in time, I thought, I can't keep doing what I'm doing. What I was doing to start my business, the market had shifted a little bit. And I couldn't I had only really been working for sale by owners. Well, they were selling their homes. Mm-hmm. It's a long process to get a for sale by owner. You go out, you make contact, you develop that relationship. Well, by the time they were loving me, they were selling their homes.
Right.
So I needed a different plan. So I started going online and looking for some direction, looking for some different input. Because again, there's wonderful people at my office, but they teach sphere of influence. I'm like, but what if you don't have one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've only sold, 9 to 12, had 9 to 12 transactions at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough people.
No.
It really isn't. And so I started reaching out online and looking at things on YouTube, and I discovered a few people who had some different methods for getting business. And, it's all talking to people, but it's different methods for talking to people. And it's talking to people in quantity. And I learned online that, real estate is really math. There are formulas. If you do certain things, it's like a computer program. You do A, B, and C, you can expect D, E, and F. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, I'm going to start doing A, B, and C, And I did. And I started in December. I started, making calls. I mean, I'm literally cold calling. Got a service, started cold calling, and just talking to people. And, my goal is not everybody's going to like me. I can be tough. Type A personalities are tough sometimes to like.
Right.
But there are people out there that are going to connect with me, and I need to find them. And if I don't talk to enough people, I'm not going to find the people who are going to like me. And so I just started setting goals to try to talk to at least 50 people a week. Now, I don't always do it, but I did it for a couple months. In April, this month right now, by the end of the month, which is now, I think I've closed about $800,000.
That's incredible.
In production, but it was all because I got on the stinking phone and started looking for my people. People who would like me and want to work with me.
Right. Okay. All right. So time for another little recap. Johnny's going to get mad at me if I'm talking to the microphone. A lot of things here to go over. The first thing I wanted to mention is that basically when you're going online and watching a YouTube video that's free, you're talking about like free virtual mentorship, virtual coaching. It really is a thing. It can have an impact on you. But what I want people to hear is that, you were searching for new tactics in things, how to procure business in a shifting market, but you're also finding mindset. I mean, given the divorce and the court and battles and all the time lost and all these things, there was a lot of mindset issues you had to overcome. You were finding inspiration and motivation. And then the last thing I heard you say was accountability. So you're finding all those things through online resources and connecting with people online, which is fascinating. The other thing I wanted to point out is that it's really important when you said that not everybody's going to like you. Too many salespeople, maybe in general, not just real estate professionals, but people that have to be out there in the public and building relationships and building rapport, it has a... Maybe it goes back to those expectations are too high, but they want everybody to like them. You need to work with people that like you and you like them, that you're kind of alike. That makes sense. So turning people off because of your personality or something else about you is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it hurts. I mean, I want everybody to like me too.
Right.
I'm still, that little girl is still in there who wants to please everybody and make everybody happy. But the reality is, when you are operating with no plan B, you do spend some time working with anybody. And there have been times when I've tried to work with people and I'm like, I would rather kill myself than...
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with these people. It's the way the two of us interacted. I realized, I can't live like this. And if I'm going to have my own business, one of the perks should be to work with people that like me and I like them because we connect.
Exactly.
And if I talk to enough people, I should be able to find the people that I should be working with. And then I don't have to work with the people that would be better off with somebody else. Yeah,
because there's way more time invested with people that you aren't aligned with.
Right.
Because there's just a lot that can be drama and frustration and communication barriers and all kind of things.
Right.
I think there's certain things that we've discussed already that if an agent listening paid attention to, it could potentially change their life. And one of them is just super simple. It's the fact that you had a conversation goal.
Yes.
A weekly conversation goal, 50 people a week.
Yes.
Okay, I heard that correctly.
Yes.
So what is your conversation goal? For the agents on my team, what I hammer them about is one appointment a day. We don't want to leave the office until we set one appointment. And does that mean they're going to do it every day? No, but if they what they focus on is going to expand.
Right.
So
right.
It's some simple things. And then the only other thing is that learning is kind of like anything in life that produces results. It's continual.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like a lifestyle thing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and again, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, in taking stock of what I can bring to the table, I'm never going to win that popularity contest. I'm not going to be the one that has the most friends who can refer business to me. But what I can do, I was always the top kid in school. I was always the smartest kid in class, for good or bad, whatever. I didn't do it myself. It was a gift. Mm-hmm. But I can bring that to the table. I can offer that to people. I can learn more than anybody else. I can know more than, not anybody else necessarily, but than a lot of people. And there are people out there that want to know that their realtor knows all the statistics about the national market, the local market, the hyper-local market, and I can be that person. I can interact with the people who are so meticulous about wanting to have somebody who understands the dynamic of marketing to millennials versus marketing to baby boomers or whatever. I can be that person because I like that sort of thing. I love learning. And so for me, being a learning-based realtor means constantly learning the market, learning the nuances of working with different types of people, and especially identifying buyers. I love a challenge. I love going into a house, looking at the neighborhood, looking at the price point, and saying, who is our likely buyer? Let's figure this out, because then we're going to market to that person. And of course, I learned so much of this online. Mm-hmm. I learned so much of this at your conference, at the Agent Impact Conference. My goodness. It was really divided into what I saw 3 parts, the conference. It was mindset, which is super, super important. Then it was technique, and it was marketing. We got 2 solid days of those 3 things. And, marketing is not only how do you communicate to your potential customers, but it's also who are your potential customers, identifying groups, and then talking to them in a language they could understand.
Well, yeah. So I want to get right back on that marketing train really quick. But in case the audience missed it, you've mentioned this several times in roundabout ways, but talking about the importance of self-reflection.
Yeah.
Reflecting on what your strengths and your weaknesses are and playing toward your strengths, doubling down on those.
Absolutely.
So somebody may not be the smartest agent out there, but they may have something else. They may just have this huge heart and could care less about the commission at the end of the day. It's all about service. So they just need to kind of lead with that. What do they lead with? Follow their energy.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I believe there are a lot of people out there who need the kind of agent that's never going to forget their birthday. I mean, there are a lot of really wonderful agents out there. I know them. They remember their customers every birthday, anniversary. They're right there with cards and cupcakes and stuff, I mean, I'm lucky to remember my own kids' names half the time.
Me too. So I struggle at that.
And I do. And so I'm never going to be that agent that's going to call you on your birthday. I mean, I would love to be that person, but I know that's not who I am. But I am going to be that agent that, that's there in the middle of the night thinking, okay, we got this problem with this house. We've heard it over and over again from potential buyers. How do we solve that problem? Let's think outside of the box and come up with a unique solution and get your property sold. That's who I am.
Right. I see a shift a little bit in this center of influence, sphere of influence, market share, or segment of a person's business. And I don't know if I'm off base here. Let me roll this out and we'll play devil's advocate. But you talked about market knowledge and you talked about marketing. Okay. That's 1 and 2 of what's important to today's real estate consumer. That number 1 is they want a real estate that has market knowledge.
Yes, I agree.
Number 2, especially obviously for a seller, they want an agent that understands marketing and has a robust marketing plan.
I agree.
I feel like what is happening is that technology is pulled the curtain back just far enough for the consumer to peek in and go, huh. Because think about this. If we went around and asked the agents in the association, and they had to answer honestly. We had some way to make them answer honestly. And we said, okay, after you get the listing signed, it's in the MLS, and the sign goes in the ground, what do you do to sell it?
Right.
How do you earn your commission from there?
And that's really funny because that is part of my listing presentation. I had a seller, and on the phone, he kept saying, yeah, but why should I go with you? I'm talking to a lot of people. I want to know why you. He was in sales too. And so I finally said, you know what? I'm going to tell you. We're going to get together, and I'm going to tell you. And I thought, I have this listing presentation, and one size doesn't fit all, and I'm going to switch it up, and I'm always constantly changing it up. And I did. I went over to him, and I said, you asked me a question twice on the phone, and I'm going to answer it first thing. I said, I don't usually do this. I usually go over how my company markets, how I market, and whatnot. I'm going to tell you why me. And I started out, and I just simply told him, but this is me. This isn't most people. I said, and I said, I'm going to be honest. 7, 8, maybe 9 times out of 10, it doesn't matter who you choose. You're going to put your house in this market, in the MLS. You're going to put a sign in the yard. And by the end of, in Mobile County, 60 days, you're more than likely going to be sold on average. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make a difference. I said, but if you are one of those 1, 2, or 3 people that something doesn't go exactly how we hope it goes, who do you want on your team?
That's great.
And I feel like I'm a good person to have on your team because, I'm a problem solver. Matter of fact, we just did a personality profile at my office. It was given to all the agents. And apparently I'd be really bad at being a buyer's agent because I had too much leadership skills.
Yeah, high D is...
very high D, very high C.
Right.
Very high I, no S whatsoever. No loyalty at all. So, problem solving was my number one skill. Problem solving and creative thinking. I'm like, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. That's who I want to be for my sellers, problem solvers. Matter of fact, I just had a house that closed a couple weeks ago. We always called it the unsellable house. I was not the first agent. It was a house, and it was built on the back of a mountain, basically. In Mobile, we don't have any mountains, but if we had a mountain, this was it. And it was a brand new construction when she bought it, so she didn't know what it was going to look like. And it was a slope, and it was bad. And, she had it on the market and went, reduce the price. Tried to for sale by owner, expired over and over again, enters me, yeah, I can sell it. And, we put it on the market. That's all we ever heard. Beautiful house. Backyard's horrible. Backyard's a deal killer. And then the developer got sued. There were signs in the neighborhood saying, buyer beware. I'm like, we got to take this house off the market. Pulled it off the market, and I'm going, okay, we're going to put it back on the market when the signs go away. How are we going to get it sold?
Right.
And so, again, just this whole problem-solving thing. This is one of those times where you just can't put the sign in the yard and put it in the MLS and,
Pray for a buyer
and reduce the price
right.
ad nauseum if you don't get one. And I was actually listening to Tom Ferry one morning, who is one of my YouTube people I follow. And he was like, you need to think outside the box sometimes. And if it doesn't make you wince, then probably, it's not a great idea. So I started thinking about it. And I said, I called her up. This was me in the middle of the night running this house. How are we going to sell it? Because I knew we were putting it back on the market this year. I said, I got an idea. When we take the pictures, we're going to do new pictures for the house. Let's get your grandkids. She has 2 couple of cute little toddler grandkids. Mm-hmm. I'm like, let's put them in the backyard and let's let them be, playing. Grown-ups want to put swing sets in the backyard, and that's what everybody's saying. This backyard's no good for that. Kids want to get into a box and slide down the hill. They want to do somersaults. They want to throw their toys down the hill and watch them roll and crash into the fence at the bottom. Let's take some pictures in the backyard of the kids playing and do some video and use that. We'll just kind of pepper it in through the rest of the pictures, and we'll have people in them. And she's like, yeah. So we did that. And it was actually kind of funny because she had never let the kids in the backyard before because it was too steep. And so, really. And so we got out there with their Tonka trucks and their balls. And I just sat there with my camera and took pictures of them playing. And then I did Facebook Live after that. And it was kind of funny because in the back, one of the little boys was like, I'm playing, it's fun. Da, da, da. And then the other granddaughter She took a tumble and went
Yeah,
tumbling
I was
down the
gonna say,
hill
goes
in the
rolling
back.
down.
Oh, absolutely. Just, and hopefully nobody saw that. But we had that house under contract in 3 weeks.
Wow.
After it could not be sold for years. And actually, when I went in there to her, I said, let's raise the price. You've been lowering it for years. Let's raise it. Let's offer a selling bonus to somebody who brings us a full price offer, and we'll build it into the price. We did this whole marketing thing. Oh, and then when I wrote it up, something else I'd learned at Impact Agent, and it had been online before too, was, Tom Ferry's famous for that. It's the whole identify who it's not for, maybe. And so in the thing, I was talking about this beautiful backyard where you got this great view, but if you're a flat earther, this house is not for you. Basically don't bother if you're a flat earther.
That's hilarious.
And then talked about the 3-dimensional landscaping and how beautiful and how much potential this was. And it was so funny. We were on the market for 3 weeks before we went under contract. We did not have a single complaint about the backyard. And I think it's because there was a subtle dig at if you're a flat earther, don't bother. Nobody wanted to admit that was their problem,
Well, you help people change the way they saw it.
Yeah.
They were looking at it. You just changed their perspective, and it changed everything.
It did. I don't know that I can take full credit for it, but I was so excited that, the person who bought it is actually putting in a swimming pool. And it was one that I used to tell people they could do, with the multiple decks and all this sort of thing. I'm not from here. I've got the experience of living in a lot of different places with a lot of different topographies. In California, people build on purpose on the side of a mountain. That's where the rich people build,
Yeah.
And so, tried to bring some of that in. But I was so glad she's moved out and she's moved on. And there was a time we didn't think that house would ever sell because of the history.
Wow. Okay. So, all right, recap moment. I would think, if you're not doing it already, that if you had a slide in there from your personality profile in your listing presentation that actually was proof. We learned from the Impact Agent speaker, Sharon Shrivata, that sellers need to see proof. They need to see proof of your marketing, proof of your accomplishments, proof of your ability to problem solve. So this whole story would be a very effective, but showing them a slide of your personality profile would be powerful. Then you also talked about how you can, you would watch a YouTube video and then you had heard it a number of times, and then you hear it at Impact Agent, and all of a sudden it kind of clicks. And I hear that happening all the time. It's kind of like the compound effect of information, and how you may not get it the first time around, or it may not be as clear, or the way to execute it or implement it may not be that clear until you hear it a few times.
Well, not only that, I think that, we all learn differently. Mm-hmm. And just like when I was taking post-license and I'd heard everything I needed, it wasn't presented to me in a way that I was going to learn it and remember it. But when you go to a conference like Impact Agent, you hear a lot of the same information in a lot of different ways. And just like I'm out there looking for customers that I want to work with and who want to work with me because we like each other, we mesh, the way people present information from person A, it may not make sense, or I might think that's not going to work. But when I hear person B over here explain it in a way that resonates with me, then that's when it goes, aha, I can do this. I need to do this. This is really important. The other thing too about something like Impact Agent, I listen to YouTube videos all the time when I'm, every morning when I'm getting ready, putting my makeup on, I've got that window of time to listen to YouTube. I also do it when I'm at the gym. I go to the gym 3-4 times a week, and when I'm on the ARC trainer for 30 minutes, I'm listening to YouTube. And that really helps get my morning going. But I'm racing. I'm racing to do the first thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. And so that information, it's in there. It's not necessarily gelling, but taking out that couple of days to go to the conference, it was all about learning. And so we would get, I was up from dawn until nighttime going to different seminars and different classes.
It was a long day.
But everything was about the new information. And so I was thinking about it. I wasn't just running off to my appointment. I actually had a lot of time to put it together and think about, wow, now how could I incorporate that and take my business to the next step and take my customer service to the next step? And had I not taken that time out to just focus on developing myself professionally, it probably wouldn't have happened as fast.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you mentioned something that I am actually obsessed with, and I was talking about my obsession with this even today.
Okay.
And it's lifestyle marketing. Those toddlers in the backyard and you taking pictures of them like doing life.
Yeah.
That is lifestyle marketing. And it's interesting. I haven't been doing as much of it as I would like. This past weekend, I was actually out. We have some waterfront properties listed across the bay and was taking pictures of my daughter in a kayak and taking some lifestyle shots. But when I first started exploring this, and I think, there was probably some realtors out of California or New York that were, having in their real estate videos, there were people actually pouring a glass of wine at the bar or, cooking in the kitchen and doing things. And I thought, well, we can do that down here in Alabama. We can do that. But I called the MLS because I tend to get in trouble a lot because I'm pushing the needle. So I tried to cover my buns and I called the MLS and I said, you guys, is there a rule against this? And sometimes when I do things, it causes new rules to come out. But they said, no, there's no rule, Jason. But why in the world would you want to do that? You're selling real estate, not people. And it just goes to show you, that sometimes when you get outside, the impact agent was not far from home, but, because I go to these things all over the country and just getting outside of your normal environment and experiencing things, but you don't have to necessarily get on a plane to do that. You got the YouTube app on your phone, and it was just profound to hear you say that as simple as it may be, that people say, well, I don't have time to sit there and watch videos. Well, you're listening to it.
Yeah.
How simple is that?
Yeah,
You're just listening to it.
There's a lot of time where we do stuff that we have to do, and we've got the technology. I mean, I got a Bose speaker in my bedroom. I've got a phone that has the YouTube app, and I can put it on Bose, and hopefully my 13-year-old is learning some positive mindset while I do.
Yeah, and just back to this lifestyle marketing, just real quick for people that are listening. Because I just know from teaching agents for many years that this glosses over them very quickly. But, what you did with that listing is you made an emotional connection with the buyer. And the argument I would make, if my MLS people are listening, is that because their point was, Jason, you're going to detract from the house. If you put people in there, it's going to be a distraction. An argument could be made there. But in circumstances like you have just described, it solved a problem. And what we know is that money flows to problems that are solved. People will pay. The bigger the problem that you can solve, the more money people will pay. And people also, the money also flows towards things that are different, not similar.
I agree.
And so there was a big contrast. So I mean, that's just an amazing success story. And we're like overtime now. I mean, we could literally go on. We barely even touched the surface of impact agents. So let's just talk for a few more minutes before Johnny starts beating on the glass, telling us to get out of here. Is there anything you'd want to mention about what else you learned at the conference? Or, one of the things that struck a chord in me is just how few people that were in driving distance, not just in Mobile, but this conference was in the backyard of an MLS that has 6,000 plus agents in it. And there were probably 50 people that came there or less from that area, even from Baton Rouge. Of course, you've got very successful MLS associations on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Of course, the Alabama Gulf Coast. Birmingham is not a far drive from New Orleans. And then we've got the Florida Panhandle. So any words of encouragement? Because there are real estate conference learning-based opportunities all around them.
I'll tell you what, I am a huge proponent of getting out of the norm and seeking out higher levels of learning. We're told by psychologists that we are going to be like the 5 people we hang around with most. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm the mother of teenagers, and I don't necessarily like that statistic.
Right.
But I can choose, and I can't always choose who I'm working with either. We're problem solvers as realtors. And if somebody, nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to sell my house today. That just doesn't happen. Usually there's a problem, whether it's, my kids have all gone and this house is too big and lonely, or I'm getting divorced and we need to sell, or something. There's usually a problem of some sort. Sometimes it's a good problem, but it's still, change is a problem. We're creatures of habit. Mm-hmm. And so there can be a lot of negativity working with people like that. And if you're like me and you're relatively new in the business, you're working in the bullpen of your office, which means you're around all the people who are still working in the bullpens of their office. And I go, when I go to the office, I hear a lot of, oh, business is bad. Oh, there's not enough work. Of course, I'm thinking, well, get on the phone and you can make it. But of course, I didn't always know that either, and it's not fair to say that. But when I go to a conference, I'm surrounding myself with the best and the brightest agents from across the country, not just in our local area. I mean, I do try to spend some time with the best agents in my office because I want to be more like them. But I can take it up 5 more notches by going to a conference and just sitting at the feet of people who not only have been doing really, really well, but have been doing so well that they've been recognized and asked to speak at a conference. And the kind of people who go to these conferences are people that are not satisfied with the status quo of their business and want to be higher achievers. And I get to spend time with them and exchanging ideas. And again, slowing down enough with the actual work to develop the learning side of it. And every time I've gone to an event like that, I've always taken my business to another level. And I fully expect that that's what's happening now. I don't even think the same way I thought 6 months ago. I mean, 6 months ago, I was like, dear Lord, just let me have one transaction a month, just enough to live on. And now I'm seeing myself as a higher producer than most of the agents around. At the end of my first real year, I don't count that first part when I had the big goose egg, but
right.
My first real year working, I ended up in the top 25% of my MLS in production. And I'm thinking, that was enough to kind of eat, not have a whole lot of fun. That's not, if that's top 25%, I need to go a lot higher than that. So I'm going to.
Right.
And I'm not going to do it by not expanding my horizons beyond what the expectation is so much locally. I need to be around people who are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say this with 100% certainty, but at least in Baldwin County, I think it's pretty certain that nobody was doing coming soon listings until I started doing them. Early adopter of drone photography. I didn't come up with these ideas on my own.
Right.
I don't have the Deborah Mann brain. But
I shouldn't have said that.
Here's what I do is I sit by the Deborah Manns in class. That's my secret sauce. And, if I go to these events, you mentioned the mindset and the class of the agent that you are exposed to when you go to these events. And what I love about these agents at these events that are super, super successful, the ones that are netting $1 million+ a year as a real estate agent.
In commission, not production.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not a fan of GCI. I could care less. I want to know what you're bringing home.
Right.
After everything. Is they have this mindset of, I'll be damned if I'm going to let my excuses get in the way of my results. And you talked about these conversations that happen in the bullpen, that happen around the water cooler and in the bullpens of every office across the country. I can't, woe is me, the market, interest rates, blah, 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 blah. And what they don't understand is that their true currency is time and they're wasting it. So lots of good stuff in this interview.
I'm sorry, I just want to make one other point too. Every single one of us, I believe, and especially somebody who's the top of the class, you can see things differently a lot of times than other people do. The demons inside of your head, they're bad. I think that's true for everybody. But if you are, if you're one of those people who think a lot, and you can see all sorts of bad things happening, it's really easy to go down that path.
Right.
And I'll tell you the truth, that I have every insecurity out there. I'm more insecure than most people that I know, just because I can see the possible bad things that can happen. So I have to make a choice every single day to quiet those voices, those insecurities, those demons that want to just say, woe is me, you might as well just, leave the key on the table, you're going to be homeless now, because it's too easy to go down that path. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not constantly feeding my brain with good, positive messages and just material that lets me know, I'm not the only one who thinks like this. I'm not the only one who worries. I'm not the only one who's ever, looked at my calendar and it's a bunch of blank white space.
Right.
And these people have succeeded wildly, and I can too. Not because I know more people or I'm better at what I do, But because I'm learning constantly how to refine my skills to seek out the people who need me and who I need, and just having this learning-based mentality, I just really believe the better I understand who I am, the better I'm going to be able to help my people who are out there waiting for me to get a hold of them.
What a great way to end. Deborah Mann, Roberts Brothers, Mobile, Alabama. Y'all listening out there, send her some referrals. She's good at what she does. I want to thank our Impact Agent Podcast audience for listening to this episode. It's been a really powerful episode, and I haven't ever mentioned this or haven't lately, but I think this ever really. But I have begun transcribing these blogs, or the ones that I feel like have the most amazing content. And so I'm very excited to transcribe Deborah's interview and put it on my blog. And we'll be posting the top talking points from my talk at Impact Agent Conference. So go to jasonwill.com and check out the resources there in terms of these podcast interviews and things that I'm learning out there on the road. So Deborah Mann, thank you so much again for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's been great being here with you, Jason.
You're an awesome guest. I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Impact Agent Podcast. If you like the show and got something out of it, please like the Impact Agent Podcast on Facebook and rate and review the show on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts. This really helps us grow the show and helps other agents find it. Please share it with your friends and coworkers as well. Want us to deliver the show to you via email every week? Then email me at jason@impactagentuniversity.com and we'll send you the show every week. Please let us know what you think about the show, what you like, what you don't, or possibly make a suggestion about a topic you want to hear. Email me at jason@impactagentuniversity.com or leave us a message on Facebook at Impact Agent Podcast. Until next week, everybody be productive, safe, and happy, and always keep learning. This podcast is produced by Johnny Gwynn at Duke Rod Studios in Mobile, Alabama, and is paid for and powered by ImpactAgentUniversity.com.